Former Trump advisor John Bolton just said the quiet part out loud, and Trump should be afraid. Welcome to Occupy Democrats. I'm David Reddish. In the past 4 years, John Bolton has emerged as one of the most ironic voices against Donald Trump. Once thought of as a far-right hawk, Bolton served in the George W. Bush administration as U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. His appointment to the role was ironic then, as he'd previously criticized the UN as a worthless body of diplomacy. Bush always had such interesting priorities. Bolton reemerged in the Trump years when he took the role of National Security Advisor from 2018 to 2019. The appointment sent ripples through the political world given Bolton's history, but nobody predicted what would come next. Bolton resigned from the job in 2019 after he witnessed Trump pressuring Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to investigate Trump's political rivals, namely Joe Biden. Bolton subsequently published a book detailing what he observed in the scandal and became one of Trump's most outspoken critics. That includes his recent words, which are a whole new level of stunning. More on that in a moment. Bolton went so far as to actually consider a run for the GOP nomination for president in 2024. He nixed that idea when he realized that most of the world hated his guts for one reason or another. At least the man can read a room. Perhaps because of his warnings of Trump as an unstable and unethical person during the 2024 campaign, Trump revoked Bolton's security clearance and Secret Service detail not long after taking office. That didn't stop Bolton from saying this about Trump's handling of Ukraine. Take a look.
Well, I don't have any expectations anymore. I think we know exactly what's going to happen. President Trump has effectively surrendered to Putin before the negotiations have even begun. The positions that Defense Secretary Hegseth announced in Brussels, which I'm sure I'd be stunned if Trump didn't convey them directly to Putin in their phone call, constitute terms of a settlement that could have been written in the Kremlin. Maybe they were written in the Kremlin and got out in propaganda channels. But it's a complete reversal of the U.S. and NATO position on a number of issues. For example, up until today, the official American position was that Ukraine should be returned to full sovereignty and territorial integrity. That's gone. The question of NATO membership as far back as 2008 had been that ultimately Ukraine would become a NATO member. That doesn't look like that's around anymore either. Putin has scored a whole series of victories today. It's hard to encompass them all, but I think one, in addition to these substantive concessions, is that he has now, it seems, exactly what he wants. Putin doesn't want to negotiate with Zelensky. He wants to negotiate with Trump because he thinks he'll get more out of him, and he's absolutely right.
That clip, for the record, was aired in early February, and Bolton was right on. Trump and his boozy defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, have spent the past week parroting Russian talking points. Hegseth denied the territorial integrity of Ukraine and said the country could not join NATO. And Trump claimed Ukraine started the war when they were invaded. It's also interesting that Bolton correctly predicted that Trump would make concessions to Putin before negotiations even began. It's disgusting. Perhaps motivated by the correctness of his predictions, or perhaps because he's just as fed up as the rest of us, Bolton returned to CNN last night where he had this to say.
Do you believe when Trump would not call Putin a dictator earlier, is that a negotiating strategy, or do you think he just doesn't think he is one?
Look, Trump's defenders say everything he says is a negotiating strategy, including when he says A and the next day says not A. It's all just a negotiating strategy. I think it's an indication his mind is full of mush, and he says whatever comes into it. He believes Vladimir Putin is his friend. And, you know, you don't call your friends dictators. He doesn't like Volodymyr Zelensky. He hasn't liked him since the perfect phone call of the summer of 2018. So it's no sweat off his back to go ahead and call Zelensky a dictator. This is somebody who is not fit to be president. He can't tell America's friends from its enemies.
Surprised? Anyone? Bolton more or less confirms here that Trump's governance is really driven by his own ego, hence his thinking Putin is his friend and siding with him over Ukraine. But what really caught my attention here is how Bolton refers to Trump's brain as mush. In our previous videos here on the channel, we've covered the growing voices of doubt that Trump is mentally fit for office. Bolton full-on says he's unfit here. But there is mounting evidence and anxiety within Washington circles that Trump is undergoing some kind of cognitive decline. As we reported in the past, Trump's father developed severe dementia around the same age that Trump is now. Alzheimer's runs in his family, though, and once again, I have to say I suspect syphilis. But that's beside the point. Speech and cognition experts have observed that Trump's speeches have become ever more meandering, that his sentence structure is less complex, and that he sometimes seems disoriented. All signs that he's undergoing some form of mental decay. Mental decay would also go a long way toward explaining why Trump has given Elon Musk illegal and unfettered access to our government secrets, including personal data on hundreds of millions of Americans. In other words, it looks more and more like Trump is more than unfit for the job. It looks like he's unfit to take care of himself. At what point does the Trump administration get so sick of the chaos sown by their boss that they start asking the really tough question? 25th Amendment? Anyone? Let's just all hope and pray that somebody puts a check on Trump while we still have something of our Constitution left. This is Occupy Democrats.